Welcome back to the second part of this episode. We are reading the story of Saraya.KANTIok, and we are at the point where Saraya said to Stanley, "I think you are the devil himself." She told him affectionately after warming his bed just a day after they met, the entire long story about Abednego's death forgotten. "Nope, I'm an irresistible fine boy, nothing else," he said, often touching his chin. Fine boy meets fine girl and chemistry happens. 3 months after they met, he asked her to marry him. She refused outright, but moved in with him. She loved him too much, or rather lusted after him, and wanted to be with him always, but she didn't want to make a lifelong commitment with him because of his tribe. He was Igbo, and she didn't know if she could cope with a husband from an entirely different region from her own. "You will find a nice Igbo girl who will die for you, Mr. Irresistible Fine Boy," she often told him. He didn't want to hear that at all. He would sulk and solemnly sing a song he formed for them to the tune of "My lifetime, I will give God my lifetime." And the song goes as thus. "My lifetime, it belongs to Saraya. Stanley loves Saraya. Saraya loves Stanley. Saraya doesn't want to marry Stanley just because Stanley's tribe is Igbo." Many times she shed real tears whenever he sang the song, and even sang along with her, hugging him tightly, never wanting to let go of him. One day she succumbed. "We belong together, Mr. Irresistible Fine Boy, and I can no longer fight it. I will marry you," she whispered into his ears. Boom! Marriage plans took off immediately. However, he didn't dare inform his relatives about her. He was more afraid of taking her to his kith and kin than she was afraid of taking him to hers. He hired 2 elderly Igbo couples in Zaria to accompany him to Madakia. He lied to Saraya and her relatives that they were his parents and uncle and aunt. Introduction was successful, and they both printed 100 wedding invitation cards because both of them agreed they didn't want a rowdy wedding. She shared her own 50 copies to her relatives and a few colleagues, and she assumed he did the same too. They still lived in his house and shared his bed. 1 week to the wedding, she went to work. When she came back, the electronics in the sitting room were missing, but the sofa and rug were still there. She tried his number to inform him that they had been robbed. It was switched off. Then she saw a folded piece of paper on the sofa. She unfolded it to behold the rudest shock of her life. "My dearest Saraya, I will always love you. Sorry I was not man enough to look into your eyes to tell you this. I cannot go ahead with the wedding. Something keeps telling me that I must not go ahead and marry you. The elderly couple I brought to your village for the introduction were hired. My share of the wedding invitation cards is still under the bed. I sold the electronics and a few items to enable me to disappear. Please don't look for me and find a place in your heart to forgive me. And I will always love you." He signed Stanley Wosu. "The bastard! The bastard! The bastard!" she screamed 3 times before she slumped and passed out. It was dark when she came to. "Thank God I have died," she said to herself, "because I sure cannot survive what Stanley did to me." It didn't take up to 30 seconds to realize that she was still alive, and she began to weep. "I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry for that useless Stanley." Yet she wept harder. She spent 3 days and 3 nights in one spot. No bathing, no eating, and not even crying. She was just numb. No one knew her whereabouts. No one looked for her. She had already received her annual leave in the office in preparation for her wedding. Having survived 3 days at one spot without dying, Saraya stood up on the evening of the third day, took a shower, put together a few of her personal effects in a vanity box, and headed to the motor park. She boarded a night bus going to Lagos. The journey was uneventful. She sat in the luxury bus until it reached the terminus at mile 2. From there, she boarded another bus going to Cotonou in Benin Republic. She was doing something crazy, but she didn't care. She was hell-bent on getting lost, far away from anyone and everywhere that was familiar. She didn't have a destination in Cotonou, but she knew, courtesy of her well-traveled boss, that there were some beaches with residential hotels in Cotonou. She had often booked accommodation for him from Nigeria before he traveled. She chose the one she could readily remember the name and boarded a taxi to the place. For the next 1 month, she hid herself in the hotel room. In the evening, she took strolls on the beach and sometimes stayed there till after midnight. She never ate anything except the free fruits that the hotel offered her on a daily basis. Her supposed wedding day was the hardest day for her. She thought of the people that would journey to Mad City for her wedding, only to reach there and discover that there was no wedding, no Saraya, no Stanley. She thought of the trauma her parents would go through because of the embarrassment she had brought on them, and amazingly, she didn't care. Before her money ran out, she secured a job as a cleaner in the very hotel she once lived in a luxurious room. She was offered a room in the basement, and her working hours were 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. She was too glad to accept it, and she stayed in the hotel for 1 full year without stepping out of the premises for any reason whatsoever. One day, she gave notice that she wanted to go back to Nigeria. They did a mini send-forth for her and bade her farewell. She arrived Madakia around 6 a.m., having traveled for about 24 hours by road. Everyone, her parents inclusive, thought she was a ghost. Everyone assumed she and Stanley must have died in a car accident in a location where no one could identify them or even contact their relatives, as both of them had disappeared into the thin air. She lied to everyone who cared to listen that Stanley died and she ran mad. She only mysteriously got her senses back and was able to find her way back to her father's house. Saraya couldn't tell who it was that went to inform her boss in Zaria that she was alive and back at her parents' house in Madakia. He came to see her for himself because he had sponsored a service of songs on her behalf when she was nowhere to be found. He congratulated her on her safe return and gladly gave her back her position in the office. She happily accepted the offer and went back to work. With time, she recovered everything she had lost, a new relationship inclusive. It was Mr. Linus from Jalingo. He was one of the contractors that frequented the aviation company in search of contracts. He wanted to marry her now. He was 45 while she was 35, and she was very suspicious of him. Is there any secret I need to know? How come you are not married at your age? Are your parents and relatives okay with you over marrying from outside your ethnicity? Do you have any doubts at all about marrying me? Is there another woman anywhere who is waiting for you to come and take her hand in marriage? Do you really love me? And are you ready to go the extra mile for me? There were so many questions that Saraya had for Mr. Linus from Jalingo, and she fearlessly asked him all. His answers came short and sharp. No, I didn't find the right woman. Yes, no, yes. If that is the case, we can have a wedding, something small and traditional, no invitation cards, no church wedding, no wedding guest. Exactly what was on my mind, Mr. Linus from Jalingo replied gleefully. This time she did not arrange for any annual leave. She did not even inform her boss. Her plan was to go for the weekend in Mad City, await Mr. Linus and his family's arrival. Once they came, both of them will receive the parental blessings, and that will be it. Sunday morning she will return to Zaria and move into Mr. Linus's house. No noise, no fanfare, no ceremonies. Tuesday before the wedding, Saraya was engrossed in her duties in the office. She had a load of work she wanted to clear so that by Friday she could be less busy and most likely leave the office before closing hours. She heard a light knock on her office door. "Come in," she said without raising her head from her typewriter. "Good afternoon, ma." A woman of about 40 greeted her. With her was a boy of about 18, clearly taller than the woman he came with. He looked kind of familiar to Saraya, but she could not readily say where she had met him before. "Good afternoon, madam." "Gentlemen, both of you, please have your seat. What can I do for you?" she asked as she resumed her typing. She had concluded that they must be guests of her boss. "Please, ma, we are looking for Miss Saraya.KANTIok," the woman said calmly. "What?" Saraya asked, surprised. "I am Saraya.KANTIok. Please, what can I do for you?" "You see, I am Miss Ruth Linus, wife to Mr. Linus from Jalingo. You see, this is our first son, Isaac. He's 18 years old. We have 2 other children, both of them are girls." "Okay," Saraya said. She saw the uncanny resemblance between the boy and Mr. Linus. Now she understood why she thought the boy looked familiar. "Papa, Isaac has abandoned us for over 2 years. He said he had divorced me because he claimed I am the cause of his problems. I swear I am innocent." "Okay, so what do you want me to do about it?" "Please, ma," the woman went on her knees and her son followed suit. We heard he wants to marry Miss Saraya.KANTIok. I did not say he cannot marry you, ma, but we are suffering in the house. Help us beg him to send us money to survive on, and we will be content." "This is a serious matter," Saraya muttered. "Madam, you can stand up. Gentlemen, you too stand up." She took some money from her drawer and gave to the woman. "Go home. I will make sure your husband comes back to you." "When were you planning to tell me about Ruth Linus and Isaac Linus and your 2 daughters?" Saraya asked Mr. Linus from Jalingo. "How did you know about them?" he asked, shocked. "They were in my office today. See, Mr. Linus, if you really want to enjoy God's blessings, you have to take care of your family. I'm not a church person, but I know that any man that refuses to provide for his family is worse than an infidel." Ruth. This woman has eventually finished me," he lamented before running out of the house. That marked the end of their relationship. Musa was one of the friends of her boss. He began to chase her for an affair or marriage from the very first year she got employed into the office. From the onset, she had proposed in her heart that he was a no-go area because he was of a different religion. He frequented their office to see her boss, and Saraya often engaged in chit-chat with him. That was where it ended. For all the years Saraya worked in that office, anytime she had a failed relationship and Musa learned of it, he never gloated over it. Rather, he often came to console her and reminded her that he was still available. After the incident with Linus from Jalingo, Musa told Saraya that it was possible that all her near-marriage syndrome was most likely because he was her rightful husband and God did not want her to get married to the wrong man. Gradually, her thoughts began to tilt in that direction, coupled with the fact that of all her suitors, Musa was the richest and the most generous. He often lavished her with gifts in cash and kind whenever he visited, with the hope that one day she would change her mind. With no string attached, she would ask whenever she received the gifts from him. With no string attached, he would reply, while he hoped the gift would eventually melt her heart. Saraya loved and appreciated the gifts, but she was resolute that nothing would ever brew between herself and Musa. Aside from the fact that he was of a different religion, he was already married to 2 wives and had 11 children. "Where are you going to put me?" she asked him one day when they were engaged in their normal conversation and Saraya was outlining reasons why she could not marry him. "That is the least of my problems," he bragged. "Each of my 2 wives lives in a separate house. There is no way I could ever make you stay with any of them. You will just move to one of my newly completed duplexes and we will live happily ever after." "That's not going to happen, Alhaji Musa. So quit dreaming dreams and raising your hopes." She made a bold face after the incident with Linus. She had almost become a second wife in ignorance because Linus lied to her all the while. Meanwhile, Musa never lied to her. He always laid his cards bare before her about his 2 wives and 11 children. The last straw that broke the camel's back was when he gave her a gift of a brand new car after he learnt that her relationship with Linus had ended. With no string attached, she asked excitedly why she admired the car. As usual, my dear Saraya, with no string attached, he replied, by turning the palm of his hand face up. This time she rushed quickly to give him a very tight hug. Thank you so much, Alhaji Musa. I really appreciate this gift. It's a big surprise to me. Anything for the queen of my heart. Still in a tight embrace with him, she whispered into his ears, that offer of marriage, is it still valid? Most certainly it is. Are you thinking what I am thinking? He asked. Yes, I will marry you, she said. Within 2 months, Musa's family took the wedding requirements to Saraya's family, which they gladly accepted. She was just 2 years shy of clocking 40, and any husband was better than no husband. He was rich, charismatic, and generous to a fault. As promised, he furnished the duplex she was moving into to her taste. In fact, Saraya herself placed the orders for the furniture and the fittings and supervised their installations as well. Everything was going as planned until it was exactly 1 week to the wedding. Very early in the morning of the same day, Saraya was woken up with a phone call from Musa. The time was around 4:30 a.m. As a rule, he never made any calls to anyone before his morning prayers, so she was apprehensive even as she picked the call. Hello, Alhaji, is everything okay? Are you at home, Saraya? He asked nervously. I'm coming over right away. Make sure you do not go anywhere. What is wrong, Alhaji? Where could I possibly go so early in the morning? But she was talking to herself. He had already switched off his phone by the time she completed her question. It took him just about 10 minutes to get to her place in Asma'u from his house at GRA, most likely because of the empty road and the crazy speed at which he drove. He wasn't even patient enough to wait for his driver. I'm calling off the wedding and I need to see you face to face while I told you so that you will know how serious I am, he said to her immediately. He barged into her sitting room. Calm down, Alhaji. Did your second wife put you up to this? Saraya was aware of the rage of his second wife since she got wind that a third wife was coming. No, not my third wife, not my second wife, but your 3 husbands, he screamed at her. What? Yes, 3 giants paid me a visit last night while I slept, and they said to me, you are a fool. You want to marry our wife. And they beat the living daylights out of me for over 1 hour. I knew it was a dream and I willed myself to wake up, which I eventually did. But guess what? What? Saraya asked. My body aches terribly. I feel as if a trailer ran over me. I can even see some evidence of being beaten all over my body. I can't believe this, Saraya can. You have better believed it. As it is now, I am done with you. I don't want to ever set my eyes on you again. All the gifts and Kayan Aure I took to your family for the wedding, I surrender them to you. As for the duplex, please stay away from there. Alhaji, you can't do this to me because of a mere dream, Saraya said. It was not a mere dream, Saraya. This is reality. Those giants were very menacing, and they were not joking when they warned me to stay clear of you. If I had not woken up this morning, everyone would have concluded that I had died peacefully in my sleep. No one would have known that I was beaten to death. Please, I do not want a repeat of that experience. Oh my God, were the only words Saraya could mutter. While Musa virtually bolted out of her house, she placed both palms on her face and bowed her head, desolate and at loss at what to do with herself. Instantly, an incident flashed to her mind. She recalled when she traveled to Lagos and Cotonou by road about 6 years back. One of the passengers kept telling the bus driver intermittently, "Driver, I will come down at Prayer City." "I don't know, dear. Please don't carry me past the place." Another passenger, seeing how intense the first man was about the prayer city, ventured to ask him what prayer city was all about. That is the place where all the problems that overwhelm man are solved through fervent prayers. The man alighting at prayer city said, I need to go to prayer city immediately and I do not have the patience to go by road, Saraya told herself. She put on a call to one of the airlines whose numbers she had. There was a 7:30 a.m. flight from Kaduna to Lagos. She called her boss and gave him an abridged version of what transpired between his friend Musa and her and requested for a 2-week casual leave. By 9 a.m. she was in Lagos. She boarded an airport taxi straight to Prayer City and enrolled for the weekend deliverance. In preparation for the deliverance, she was introduced to the efficacy of prayer. Never in her life has she experienced all the spiritual encounters she experienced within the weekend deliverance. By Monday, she enrolled for the week-long deliverance and placed herself on a 7-day prayer and fasting program. On the 7th day, she prayed one prayer point and fell under the anointing. Every strong man claiming to be my husband died. Every strong man claiming to be my husband died. Every strong man claiming to be my husband died. While in a trance, she saw 3 large coffins, and in it were the 3 anti-marriage spirits that had been plaguing her life for over 20 years. The 3 of them were stone dead. Epilogue. It was a rude shock for Saraya to bump into Stanley at Prayer City. My God, Saraya, what are you doing there? What are you doing here? He asked. She smiled. It was the exact question he has asked her years ago when they first met at a cake parlor in Zaria. What are you doing here, you hypocrite? She asked in return. Oh no, I am not a hypocrite. I've been battered by life since I abandoned you. I lost my job. I couldn't find another one till now. I got jilted by 2 different women and lost all my property to a fire incident in my home. I joined Mountain of Fire and Miracle Ministries in my state of despair, and I've been growing in faith. My regional overseer recommended me to come for deliverance in Prayer City because, like he said, God was ready to change my story. Was the only thing Saraya could say. I think about you every day of my life, Saraya, Stanley said. I often wondered what became of you, but I was never bold enough to contact you. Tell me, are you married? She shook her head to indicate a no. Neither am I. I think we need to sit down. We have a lot to talk about. No, Stanley, I do not have anything to talk to you about. She snapped. If a man deceives you once, shame on him. If he deceives you twice, the shame is on you. You have deceived me once. The shame is on you. I will not allow you to deceive me the second time, for the shame to be on me. He smiled. By the grace of God, I am a changed man now, he said. Who cares? Can a leopard change his spots? She asked him rudely. Even as she said these words, just to hurt him, she knew the deep love she and Stanley shared for one another. That was why his disappearance had pained her the most of all the relationships she had lost. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. All things are passed away, because behold, all things are become new. He quoted a Bible verse to buttress the kind of person he had become. Indeed, he was a changed man, and so was Saraya. The Lord had mercy on both of them during the deliverance, and they were set free from all forms of bondage. Within a week, Stanley got a very lucrative job in an oil company. In spite of Saraya's skepticism due to her past experiences, within 2 months of their reconciliation, she and Stanley got married in a full-fledged, well-attended church wedding, complete with church counseling in accordance with all the laid-down rules and regulations of the church, to the glory of God and to the shame of the devil. This story is called from the original testimony in the message preached by the General Overseer of Mountain of Fire Miracle Ministries, Dr. D.K. Olukwaya, during the Power Must Change Hands on Saturday, August 4th, 2018. And the title of the message is The Prayer Family. Thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much. I hope you've been blessed, and I hope you have been edified also by this story. Please like our page, please like our videos, subscribe to our page. The Lord bless you. Thank you so much. Goodbye.